I'm the president of the Friends of the Portland Memory Garden.
Okay.
We're a nonprofit group that helps maintain and program the garden.
All right, we never discussed that part of
Yeah.
it, so I'm sure that's probably on the website. And under her name, we have PortlandMemoryGarden.org is the website for it. I stumbled upon it riding by my bicycle. It's at 104th, just south of Powell, and there's a really wonderful marquee up there in what? How many different languages?
5.
5 different languages, some Asian languages, and of course, either Ukrainian or Russian, or both.
Russian.
Russian, yeah, because they use that script.
Cyrillic,
yeah, Cyrillic is just, it's just like the old Greek, I guess. So I guess just first off, we should just discuss. I know that there's like 8 or so of these in the country, 8 or 10, something like that.
Well, actually, there are only 2 public memory gardens in the country.
That are run by the.
And the one in Macon, Georgia is no longer operating.
Really?
So we are unique in that we are the only memory garden on public land in the country.
And it's the city runs it then, or the Borough Parks?
It's part of the Portland Parks system, yeah.
It took me a while to figure out what it was all about. I read the marquees and I rode the bicycle around and checked it out, and it was early spring, so the daphne was just fragrant throughout there, and the daffodils. It was just beautiful. It's well designed, and we can get into the design and all that a little bit later. We have a little 6-minute video that somebody that really knew what they were doing put together. But I guess first, just smell can bring you back more than anything.
Correct.
And sight and hearing. But actually, it seems to me sight is even the less strong of those. I mean, aromas and hearing is very strong. And this is so designed, it seems to me, that the senses are really, really bringing back. But there's more of a specific thing of just reminding people.
Correct.
That this is,
Correct.
It's aimed more for specific people.
Well, it's a garden that is designed to help people retain memory or jog their memory of gardens that they had in the past.
Right, that was it.
So we try very hard to maintain plant material there that is reminiscent of older gardens. So we try to have things there that people of a certain age will remember, and it will spark memories, which may spark conversation, which may cause some social interaction with other people. So part of the horticultural choices are to make all of the senses have some play in with the garden material. So as you mentioned, sight, smell, aroma is very important. It's one of the things that really stays with people as they age. Sight, not always, but we try to do colors that are that contrast, so people can see lights and darks.
Really?
And we even put things in the garden where we want people to touch them, very tactile. There are a lot of plants that have they're soft, or they're pokey, or they're
Like Barbary, it comes to mind.
yeah, and we don't want people to really touch those, and we try not to have things that are going to hurt people, but we encourage people to touch and experience the garden without picking. We don't really want picking of things. We really are proud that this garden, we call it a 4-season garden, because every single season in that garden there's something really wonderful happening. Whether it's in January when everything's pretty gloomy in other gardens, we have beautiful bark on our coral bark maples or on our stewardias. We have a plant there called sarcococa that blooms late December and January, and you have the most fragrant flowers at that time of years. So we really try to make every season and even every month have something special for people. And you mentioned the daphne. That's a real showcase piece in
so many different
February.
Kinds now. Right.
Yeah.
Well, with this global warming situation, I mean, it's changed a lot. I imagine there was things blooming in January that didn't normally bloom.
This was an early spring for us. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you keep saying we. Was this designed by landscape architects, or was it just the folks that are involved with the memory garden?
This was
Because as you got this book here, we'll talk about a little
Yeah,
later. That
yeah.
you're a gardener as well, so.
So this garden was a project of the American Landscape Society of Architects. They had their centennial, and they wanted to build 100 gardens in 100 cities in 1989. 98, excuse me, 98.
Across the country?
Across the country.
Wow.
And
Bold.
we had a group of people in Portland who learned about this, and they decided, why not Portland? You know, we're kind of the garden city
Yeah,
in
long
the
growing
Northwest.
season here. Yeah.
And so with those visionary people and a landscape architect, they approached the city, and it took about 2 years for the process to happen, because there were a lot of places in the city, other communities that wanted a memory garden, and so we had to select them. We had to learn the pros and cons of those communities, and the Ed Benedict Community Garden in Southeast Portland was selected for a number of reasons. One is that the land there was owned by Portland Parks, so the land was just waiting to be developed.
And the community garden is just right next to it.
And that community garden, yes, but that community garden is only 3 years old. That just happened. So we got our long-range plan to build the memory garden, and that took years, you know, from the planning and getting the neighborhood on board, getting the money. All the money was in hand when we built it, and then actually constructing it, which was really done by volunteers as well. So once that garden got established there, then we have been, over the years changing the plant material, adding new things, adding new horticultural materials. So it really.
I've got to add my comment about bicycles, because if you were out there, it was closer to you, but it was a little ways from me. And I went out, and it was supposed to be a ride. There was going to be a bunch of people come. And I got there, and it was just terrible weather, cold and miserable and raining. And I bicycled around through it and all that. And then I called the guy. He said, well, I guess we're not having a ride today. And I was the only one that showed up.
Well, there is an area of cover there too that has a.
Oh yeah, right. So,
There's an entrance pavilion. That's one of the design features, actually, of memory gardens, and that is a little bit of a shelter, but we don't have an enclosed shelter there. So when we do have programs there, they're mostly in the summer, because that's when the weather is good, and people can be outdoors.
What kind of programs are you speaking of there?
We have a free senior summer horticultural therapy program in which we invite senior communities to come to the garden with their caregivers, and we give them a session using horticultural therapy as a modality for people to get more in touch with plant material and have an activity with plant material and experience plant material. So all of us who do those programs in the garden are registered horticultural therapists.
Wow.
So we're trained to work with all people, but mostly the seniors who use our garden. We're trained to work with them, and they'll come to the garden, and if they come in late July, our lavender is beautiful, and so we'll focus on lavender, and we will introduce them to lavender and have them really experience all of the properties of lavender, from smelling to touching to even making lavender tea in the garden. And it's a nice outing for seniors, because many of them are, frankly, warehoused in their communities, and they don't get out much. And so when they come to our garden, it's free, it's easy to get to, it's safe, and it's a really nice outing for them without a lot of worry about security and safety.
So by senior communities, you mean these places where they have a lot of senior people live together.
And I'm mostly meaning memory care units. We really try to focus on that population of people who are not getting out in the garden on their own volition. So by offering a free program to the retirement community, if they can get a bus or van and get their folks, then the rest of it is up to us, and we give them a really lovely program. And we also try to, and it's a big focus of ours, to instruct caregivers on how they can use gardens. Because we're not with these people all the time. But if they, if they watch us work with lavender or work with other plants, it's something they could replicate in some form back at their community.
Container gardens.
Container gardens, making bouquets, making flower arrangements, pressing flowers.
Dried flowers.
Yeah.
Silver dollars or whatever.
Exactly. And so we try to model some of those activities for people, for the caregivers in particular, and give the residents, a real quality experience in a garden.
I don't remember the terminology, but I got the impression that an emphasis is put on folks, maybe not with Alzheimer's, but have memory issues. And how is that taken care of? Just through what you're talking about?
Sure.
You don't extract that particular group of people from the other senior community. It's just that they are able to take advantage of it.
That's right, exactly. And we've had groups of folks with developmental disabilities come and use the garden. They live in halfway houses or group houses, and they'll come with their caregivers independently of using horticultural services. And because there's several around that neighborhood, and it's really lovely to see them come and just sit in the garden or look at the flowers. I mean, there's that kind of passive gardening that they get a lot of pleasure from without it being a program. So that's the other thing about the garden that is important to those of us who take care of it, is that we keep it maintained, clean, safe, so anybody who comes there with a group, they can be almost guaranteed of a nice experience without sort of maybe the typical urban park issues that you might have. And I'll tell you, we do have them. I mean, we're not immune to that. Graffiti and garbage, and we've had plants destroyed, and so we have to really keep up on that part of what happens in urban gardens. But the more we keep that garden looking good, I think more people want it to look good and want to take care of it. So neighbors are really have taken a lot of ownership with the garden.
Well, that's important, because it is, a community garden, even though it's not necessarily titled that. It's what it is.
It is, right.
And
You try to keep the vandals away from it, and damage. You try to keep damage from happening from people that are just crazy enough to do that kind of stuff.
I just think a lot of the problems we've had have been with people who are bored. Maybe angry. They have a lot of time on their hands, and they don't, they don't appreciate a garden. And so we try very hard when we see maybe young people in the garden who, seem to be, I can see them writing graffiti on the table. Just have a chat with them about the garden, and do you know what this garden is and who's it for, and just try to educate them a little bit. And that's why the kiosk that you were referring to with the 5 languages, that is brand new. And we wrote a grant to Myra Memorial Trust, and we were very fortunate for them to fund that kiosk.
They fund a lot of great things.
But we wanted to make that garden accessible to the variety of folks who live in that area. And as you mentioned, Russian, we have Vietnamese there, we have Spanish-speaking people, and many of them walk into the garden, they don't really know what the garden is because everything's been in English. So we wanted everything about that garden that we feel is important to be written in a language of the people who mostly visit there. And so it's only about 6 months old. We haven't gotten a lot of feedback about.
I think it's wonderful.
But I'm glad you noticed it, and we're hoping that by opening that information to a lot of people, we'll see less vandalism and more buy-in into the garden.
I hope so. What are the other 2? I guess one, there's English, Vietnamese, Russian.
Chinese.
there is Chinese.
Yeah, I did
Right,
Chinese.
so there's two
yeah.
Asian
and then,
languages.
Yes,
Spanish, probably.
Spanish.
And Spanish.
And of course English. Yeah.
Well, that's important to let people, set and imprint on it. And if they don't understand it, they just see a bunch of flowers and they don't understand that there's a lot deeper significance to what's going on there, other than just a garden. Not that just a plain garden doesn't have a deeper significance, but this is like you say, trying to engage folks who and click memories. Most of them are most gardens are for the here and the now. I
Right,
think, and
yeah.
this is reaching back in time.
Right. So it was focused for people who have memory issues and for their caregivers, but the bigger and more global philosophy is we want everyone who uses that garden to be restored in it, to feel like it's a place for them to go and just get in touch with nature a little bit and not. And they're not excluded because they might not have Alzheimer's. So it's, it has those design features for certain population, but it really is a universal garden.
Is it to do with people when someone dies? Do a lot of people come there for that reason?
It's not a memorial garden. We've tried not to make it a garden where people.
Really?
No, we do have because we're a nonprofit. We need to do a little fundraising, and one of our fundraising programs is selling bricks. And
okay.
people can, they can buy a brick
like
in
Pioneer
memory.
Square there.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly,
right,
like
oh,
in
yeah.
Pioneer, exactly, and they can buy a brick or a paver in memory of a parent,
Okay.
and often it's people who use the garden and their children, loved bringing their mother there, and now mother's passed, and so there's a brick for her.
I didn't even notice that.
That's when you'll see the picture of the front entrance, and they're on the walkway.
All right. Well, we're in like 17 minutes here, and you brought a great video. It's 6 minutes long. It's set to some music, and there's actually some narration. It sounds like your voice, actually, was it? I thought it was. And we'll go into that, and we'll come back in 6 minutes and continue the conversation.
The Portland Memory Garden in southeast Portland, Oregon, is not your ordinary public garden. Although all visitors are welcome, this garden was specifically designed to serve the special needs of those with memory disorders and to provide respite for their families and caregivers. It is one of 8 memory gardens in the United States and one of only 2 built on public land. Many organizations came together to create this special garden, which originated as part of the 100 Parks, 100 Years Centennial Celebration of the American Society of Landscape Architects. In addition to the landscape architects, the design team included horticultural therapists, environmental psychologists, and experts on Alzheimer's disease. Groundbreaking was in 2000, and the garden was dedicated in May of 2002. The gated and fenced design of the garden offers total accessibility and safety, as well as many features geared to the needs of those with memory disorders. The 6-foot-wide cement sidewalks are tinted to eliminate glare, edged with a contrasting color, and circular so that visitors don't get confused by dead ends or turns. Space benches provide ample opportunity for resting. Visual landmarks make for easy orientation. An arbor covered with clematis offers shade for private picnics or visits. An inner circle of the garden provides lush grass for picnicking and barefoot walking. Raised beds offer a variety of heights, so walkers don't have to bend or stoop, and visitors in wheelchairs can get close to the plants. An ADA-approved restroom and multi-height drinking fountains are also available for visitors. The four-season palette of plants and trees offers sights, sounds, fragrances, and textures all year round and attracts wildlife. Each of the raised beds has a profusion of plants that change with the seasons and an interesting conifer that offers shape and tactile interest all year. A variety of herbs offers visitors the opportunity to smell, touch, and have an occasional taste. Twice a year, over 120 summer and fall annuals are planted that provide seasonal color. The garden provides many activities, including regularly scheduled horticultural therapy programs, as well as events in response to spontaneous requests from various organizations throughout the year. Registered horticultural therapists give tours of the garden and conduct free nature sessions for many senior communities in the Portland metro area. The sessions are available not just to those with memory disorders, but to frail elders and the developmentally disabled, caregivers, family members, and others who want to learn more about the uses of horticultural therapy. In addition, horticultural therapy students participate as part of their training. The garden is maintained under the joint stewardship of Portland Parks and Recreation and the Friends of the Portland Memory Garden, a group of volunteers that became a nonprofit organization in 2008. Other volunteers contribute their time on the first and third Saturdays of each month and at work parties throughout the year. Upkeep and improvements are supported by grants and through generous contributions from individuals who can also purchase pavers or benches to commemorate their loved ones. The Portland Memory Garden is a living testimonial to what can happen when diverse public, private, and nonprofit organizations and individual volunteers come together in the spirit of creating a better community. It is also a unique and remarkable resource for anyone who chooses to visit, enjoy, and be restored. For those living with Alzheimer's and other forms of memory loss, it can truly be their world for the moment.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well put together, and I want to just emphasize that it was your voice, obviously, and you say it was your husband that did the editing?
He wrote the script.
He wrote the script.
And edited and he produced the piece, and my son wrote the music.
All
for
right.
it.
Well, it was well done, and you said it
Thank
was
you.
done on PowerPoint.
Yes.
Which is, I think that's powerful to have the photographs, but to have the motions going in back and forth and going in. I learned, even though we covered almost everything they talked about there, I learned a lot just watching that. And this whole concept of memory disorders and all, and that one woman looked like she was 15 again or whatever, and going back in the past.
Really?
And it just seems to me that that is such an important thing. And I think most of those were elderly people. And it seems to me that you maybe garden through a certain part of your life, and then maybe you get older, you get busy, and you don't anymore. And then you get to the point where you really can't anymore. And this provides an incredible service.
And
Gardening still can be hard.
Oh yeah.
sure.
But enjoying it isn't.
Sure. So, it's important that people recognize when the task is too hard and they either get help or they don't do it. But, sitting in a garden and looking out at a at a tree that changes every season, or looking at the bird feeder and the birds coming, or the bird bath. I consider that gardening. That's passive gardening. People are appreciating nature, appreciating the plant material,
And you're connecting with it.
and you're connecting with it.
Yeah.
And so that's another reason why part of my profession, which is horticultural therapy, we really try to initiate these senior communities to have, if they can't have a therapy garden, to have a beautiful view out a window, or something really beautiful at the front entrance when people come and go. So there's some place where people know that they can sit and see nature, see the cycles of the year happening.
I was just going to say, see the progression.
That's right. That's right. Because that connecting people with time and space is very important, and keeping them engaged in what's happening in the daily life. Keeps them, really does help them keep more accessible to their loved ones. They become more social. They'll talk to other people about, did you see the tree today? The colors are really changing, or boy, the tomatoes are getting ripe. I mean, gardens provide a way for people to talk to each other. You don't always have to talk about the weather or bingo or the news. A garden can.
The snooze, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So looking at a garden as a way to really connect people to each other is a very important thing.
It strikes, obviously everybody thinks, well, people get warehoused and, it's terrible. But the word static came to mind at their lives, I mean, it consists of watching some TV or dinners. It might vary a little bit from day to day, but, it's a pretty flat, static existence. And, a little bit of color, a little bit of aroma, a little bit of change of the seasons, which they can do that in a senior community.
Sure.
I'm trying to remember that word there.
Yeah.
Old folks' homes it may be what it is,
Yeah.
but it's not proper to house them like that. So, and I think, are you familiar with any senior communities that have taken the ball and ran with it because of what they learned there?
Oh, sure. There are many that are putting gardens in for folks, for the different levels of care. I would say Willamette View in Milwaukee is a great example of a community that values gardens, values gardening. For those who are still able to garden, they have a community garden there, and then they have different levels of gardening depending on if it's too hard for you anymore. You can stand at a raised bed, and there's many raised beds there, or there's just a beautiful view out a window. So it's becoming more of a marketing benefit for some of these facilities, because people, those of us who are gardeners, when we are going to live in those places, we probably want a garden. And so I think the message to a lot of the places is, if we've got a little space, let's put a garden in.
The naturopath I go to, Wisdom and Mercy and Wisdom, I don't know if you're familiar with them. Behind their building, they've got a bunch of raised beds that are pretty high. And I think they might be new because there's nothing in them. But, this can be extrapolated to disabled people as well. You've already mentioned that, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
But whether you're disabled or you're elderly, the effect's the same way. Your ability to perform and do things and even appreciate things are abbreviated, and then this seems to maximize that ability to connect back up.
And it also gives residents some sense of hope. I'm planting a bean, or I'm planting the cucumber you were talking to me about, and that expectation that with some care and some of my input, we have a relationship now with this plant, and pretty soon I'll be able to eat from this plant or pick the flower. And so that is, kind of psychologically healthy for people to have that kind of connection with something living that needs them.
Sure. And the flowers can be brought in and put in vases, whether it's in the lobby or
and
in your room.
shared. And so now they're giving. They're not just taking; they're part of the community and adding to the community.
Well, you find, I have found as I grow older that sometimes it's the smaller things that have the biggest significance.
Absolutely.
And a flower in a vase might have might just speak, picture worth 1,000 words, could be speaking volumes to somebody that has been sitting in a wheelchair or been able to just barely move around with a oxygen tank with them or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't take much to depression. It doesn't take much to lift your spirits either.
Right, exactly. And there is a real rich research now that proves that people who spend time in a garden, their sense of aggression is lowered, their anxiety is lowered, even physiological measures show that blood pressure goes down, stress levels go down. They can monitor these stress hormones and see that after being in the garden or being part of a garden program, all of these things get reduced. And so this body of research is showing physicians that perhaps a garden is better than psychotropic drugs to give to people to calm them down. Why don't we prescribe being in a garden? And so people like me with horticultural therapy training, we can go to a community like that and help people in the garden, provide programs, provide the experiences that they need so they can be becoming healthier in more natural ways than just being medicated.
It kind of shows a little bit about our society where we're at, that we have to have psychotherapists to teach us that being around plants or animals. I mean, you got to forget the name of the pit bulls and convicts or something on TV where they and there's places where they bring prisoners out and they work with horses, and it really, like you say, it releases the stress, the anxiety, the anger, and well, of course, this has been going on for thousands of years, and it's about time people came back around and recognized that fact, and that garden, I think, is one of the paramount ways this is being done in the city.
Yeah, and it's fairly easy. It may be hard to bring a horse into a senior care facility, but you can bring in plants and make raised beds and bring in house plants, and you really can provide a very rich program for not a lot of money, and you get a lot of value for doing that. And I would like to add that gardens have become pretty important in correction facilities now. They're trying to
like OSP in Salem.
Well, yes, and I'm in particular, the state of Washington has some very innovative programs for their inmates who are growing vegetables for the farmers markets in the towns where the with the jail
and
is,
their own kitchens.
and they're feeding themselves, and they're they're learning how to grow orchards, so when they leave they have some skills. So a lot of that is very vocationally based as well. The men and women are learning skills and a skill set that they can do outside of when they're released, and they're also learning good work habits in an environment that is nurturing instead of punitive. So horticultural therapy is really can reach any age with any anybody's issues can really be met by getting involved in plants.
Well, you use the word relationship, and it strikes me that people say they're growing tomatoes and they're growing broccoli or whatever, but they're not. They're growing it in relationship with the earth, and with the seasons, and with the sun, and with all the different things, and that is something that's as you get older, where you get. I could go into a long diatribe about our disconnect from nature and each other, but that isn't necessary, because I think we all realize to some degree, with our cell phones and our computers and our cars, we're disconnected, and this is moving us back around in the other direction.
It is, and we're trying also to reach children, even just children who don't have any issues, just keep them connected with the world around them.
Keep them from getting issues.
And keeping them, exactly,
Because this disconnect, children and as they get older, if they don't feel like they belong, that's when they act up.
That's when they're doing vandalism in the memory garden.
So you need to get him in and have him grow some broccoli or something, or a plant a bulb or whatever. So
I've had very good luck with volunteers from the juvenile corrections system. When they when they've created an infraction, they have to do community service, and they've been assigned to the memory garden.
Good deal.
And they'll walk into the garden with real chips on their shoulders and, not wanting to interact. And
Really?
100% of the time, they leave
Engaged.
softer, engaged, feeling like they did something important. They just didn't pull ivy or wash a wall. I make sure they plant something, or they touch plants, or they really are doing something.
Prune something back. Or pull a weed.
Yeah. And I just think that I just love having those people come, because I do think they get a little bit closer to understanding what nature is about, and that for an hour it really did something nice for them.
Sure. You mentioned penitentiaries, and I know there's quite a few in the state. I have this sort of thing going on. Do you know if any of the juvenile facilities are setting up gardens or whatever?
I've noticed a garden at the facility in northeast. I forget the name of it. It's a man's name. It's right near Fred Meyer on Northeast Gleason, and
okay, 60th and Gleason. Right
they
near
have
there.
raised beds in front of the facility
Oh, it's
there.
over on Halsey.
It's on Halsey, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I forget the name of it.
Yeah.
It is a guy's name.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a kind of a shortcut you can take right.
Exactly. And I've seen some young people out there working, and so I think perhaps I'm not sure it's a horticultural therapy program, but I'm sure they're having somebody help the kids garden and take care of the garden, which is
Sure.
fine. That's fine.
Well, it doesn't have to be termed horticultural gardening or
Right.
therapy in
Right.
order for it to be that.
Right, exactly.
So
Yeah.
well, I see we've
Yeah.
used up 37 minutes, and I know we've got 5 pictures, and we might put a picture up at a time, and you say each one is beautiful, but it has significance.
Sure. Yeah, I could maybe
All
critique
right,
them
it might
if
take
they...
them a minute to start moving these
Okay.
up. There we go.
Okay.
That's the first one.
So this is our main entrance, and memory gardens typically only have one entrance, because you don't want to have multiple gates where
People can get
people
away.
can get away,
Yeah.
particularly people with Alzheimer's, because they tend to wander and want to elope, which means they want to leave. So this is the one main entrance, and those gates can be closed. So if I brought my van of seniors to the garden, once I put them in there, I close the gate and I put down the little latch, and they can't get out. So I know that they're going to be in the garden safe. And then the whole garden is, as you saw earlier, is enclosed in this metal fence. But the participants can look out, so they're not feeling like they're imprisoned or they're in a fortress, and that's important, that they have some sense of the world around that's outside the garden. Often in a memory garden there is one point of orientation. It's called wayfinding. So that pavilion that you see there, which is our one shelter, that can be seen everywhere in the garden. So if I wanted to sit there and my mother was still wanting to walk on her own, I could sit there and say, Mom, if you feel like you're getting lost, just look for the pavilion and just walk towards it. So then she on her own can find me. And the garden also has circular pathways, so there's never a place where they're going to dead end and not get out. They're always going to be walking around and coming back to the front of the garden.
Good design. And here's the second one.
So here's the second one, and this is the back side of the pavilion.
Bridal Veil Spirea.
That's right, it's
Yeah.
Spirea, and that pavilion has a beautiful fabric on the top that lets light in, and so even in the darkest
fabric?
day, it's not fabric, I'm sorry, it's a material. It lets a lot of light through, but keeps out the water. So it's a very lovely material that keeps that pavilion well lit and inviting.
Really Japanese looking for some reason.
There
to
is a
me.
little bit of an Asian touch to it, but part of this picture is you can see the lushness of the material, and of course this is a spring picture or late spring when the
Sometime in
spirea.
May, looks
Yeah,
like.
uh-huh.
This year might be April.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
yeah.
All right. And this is
And
this
here's
is that
this-
Camacypris has.
That's right.
Yeah.
And this is a good example of the lushness of the plant material. And this is an raised bed. If this photo can be, if you can pan down a little bit, you'll see,
There we
yes,
go.
you'll see there are about 5 of these cement raised beds, and they're at an angle which provides different levels of seating. So if you want to sit on the ledge, you can. If you want to lean on it, you can. And you can also use the sides as support if you wanted to lean in and touch
Oh,
some
sure.
material. We try to put a lot of herbs among the perennials so people can always be touching and smelling.
They bring in bees too.
And they bring in bees,
Yeah.
right? We have a lot of bees, and we really do encourage beneficial insects.
What's the purple flower
That's
there?
an aster.
Oh, aster that early in the year?
Well, this is probably a fall picture. Or
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Getting
It
to
isn't
be,
all spring,
yeah,
right?
they're not all spring, no.
All right, maybe we have nothing. No,
So
that's
here's another, this is a great example of the wide sidewalks. You know, they're 6 feet across, which allows 2 wheelchairs to pass each other, which is, you know, we want
Without
people
bumping into each
without
other,
bumping
yeah.
into each other. All of the cement, as we mentioned in the video, the cement is tinted, and so it cuts down on the glare. Because we all know with our aging eyes, you know, when you hit a sidewalk that's white, it hits your eyes, you have some trouble getting reoriented to good vision. There are, the benches are positioned around the pathway, so wherever you're sitting, you can see the next bench. So if I'm elderly and I'm with my walker and I'm tired, if I see that bench down the way, that gives me encouragement. I know I can get to it.
Oh,
So we've tried to place them so it gives some incentive and motivation for people to get to the next bench. So they're getting exercise, and they have something to strive for. And
we all need that.
yeah, yeah,
What was the red flower there?
those were geraniums.
Sure, I thought they were at
Just
first.
old-fashioned
next to the fescue
geraniums.
there.
So we try to do nice color, as I said earlier, contrast and colors together. But you know, the geraniums are such a favorite. So many of the people remember those.
I was just going to say a lot of what I saw there. You know, landscape architects aren't planting a lot of some of those things. Like you
They're
don't
doing
see
very edgy. They're doing edgy
yeah,
plants.
you don't see
and-
camellias. You don't see
Right.
those. You see a lot of the newer things. And,
Right.
you know, that's cool. You know, in 30 years they'll be looking back at what was new now.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
We'll have to change our whole palette.
yeah, true.
So
That's
this
it.
is a really lovely, this is one of our inner circle gardens, and you can see it's quite close to the front entrance. But this semicircle of benches is a favorite place for seniors to come when they come with their in their van. You can put 3 people on a bench, and they're all together close, and I've come to the garden to do some maintenance, and there will be a caregiver there with his guitar, and they're singing in that little area. So it's one of the areas where you can kind of group the people together and have that cohesion
Sure.
of a group.
And you can address them too. like-
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. We were going to put a water feature in the garden because water is a very prominent part of a therapy garden. But because this was a public park and because of the potential maintenance issues and vandalism issues,
freezing and-
yeah.
freezing, we kept the circle and we put in a really beautiful tree that gives us 4 seasons of interest.
Was that the 5th one already?
That's the last one,
All
yeah.
right.
We saw that, yeah. I
That-
think we
all
saw
right,
all
here
of
we
them.
go
There we
through
go.
'em, yep.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that's got a real Asian appeal to it to me. Maybe it's just that big, thick wood.
I think
and, And the
so.
way that they're on the edges, where they're going up
Yeah,
like this.
yeah.
So that you say that was the local design firm that did the design?
Yes, yes. The Brian Bainson, who is a local landscape architect, he did that design with another architect from Seattle. So he was part of the design team.
And has where is the closest one? You say there's 8 in the country. Is this the only one on the West Coast?
This is this is the only public one anywhere.
anywhere.
Yeah.
The other ones, I'm not sure. I think they're more in private gardens, and I really don't know what private gardens they're
see.
in. They might be in, a private senior community in San Francisco. I just don't know about those.
I see.
Yeah, I'm pretty focused on the one that's in a public,
That
because that's a
might-
very, it's sort of an unusual model for us to be partnering with, with the city parks.
And you say the other one that's public went out of business. Is the right term.
I don't think it got the support.
Where was it?
Macon, Georgia.
Macon, Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a completely different climate and geology and everything there. So that's too bad. But hopefully there'll be someone else will step up. The more I see this, the more I see how important it is, and it's not smacking you in the face important, but it's something that it's got kind of like the mycelium under the ground.
Exactly,
It just kind of
exactly.
just reaches out and just
Right.
includes everything.
Right. And, this garden is, it really exists because we have a great relationship with Portland Parks. I mean, they've been very, very supportive, and I think they really appreciate this garden and really do their best to help us, keep it going, because sometimes there are things that they have to come and do that my volunteers can't do. But we really would love to share our knowledge with other municipalities around not only the state but other states, and to see if how we could help them.
Well, Vancouver, right across the river.
Vancouver. I mean, people even come from the west side of Portland. The east side and the west side, we don't know much about each other. And people from Beaverton will say, we need one of these in Beaverton.
They do.
So, we don't want to be just the only memory garden in town. We'd like to share what we do.
Well, King City, the other side of Tigard out there, that's very much of a retirement community out there. That would be a perfect place for it.
Yep.
And apparently there's a little money out there from the looks of the homes.
Yeah, because these are not cheap gardens, and
No.
this garden really had to be built well because it's a public garden, and it had to last at least 50 years.
Well, that's
So-
stone. That's stone. It will.
That's poured cement. It really has to hold up to a lot of abuse, which sometimes it doesn't, but we try to keep one step ahead of the vandalism. But these, if it's a public garden, it really needs to have a lot of robustness.
I'm looking forward to my next bicycle trip out there.
Good. But you know what? You're not supposed to ride your bike in there.
Oh, now you tell me.
Well, I did. But you can always park it,
It's
that's all right.
Yeah. The Portland Parks put a sign up way up high on a lamppost that nobody sees.
I didn't see it, no.
Right. But we just ask people not to ride bikes in there, especially if older people are
Right.
in there.
Well, that would be-
and you would probably use common sense.
Sure,
But
but there was nobody in there. But
Yeah.
actually, there was a couple young people sitting there. So,
Yeah.
But we mentioned the word volunteer and the maintenance and all that. So, and haven't seen the graphic up, but there's been a graphic with your name, says portlandmemorygarden.org, and it's a nice website. It has a lot of things you can click on to go find out, and the videos available there, and a few other things. And as always with nonprofits, you can use support from a lot of different ways. I'm sure that you have something set up for volunteers. What did you say, first and the third?
First and third Saturday, rain or shine. I'm at the garden the first Saturday. My colleague Julie is there on the third Saturday, 9:30 to 11:30. We don't ask people to commit. We just say if you wake up that morning and you feel like volunteering, come. Somebody will be there, and we always have volunteers show up, and we're ready to give them a task that fits their needs.
You provide tools.
We have tools, we have gloves, we have everything people need to help us in the garden.
But it seems to me that actually I did see that you do plant a certain amount of annuals every year at certain times. Is that time would be coming up soon?
That's right. So the week after Mother's Day, we plant. I said, I think in the video I said it was 120 annuals. We're now up to over 400 annuals we plant in the spring and in the fall. So after Mother's Day, we plant all of the summer annuals, and then right after Halloween, we put in the winter pansies. So there's nice color all year in terms of, floral.
Yeah,
floral
pansies are
things.
called annuals, but they're really perennials in this climate.
That's
anyway.
right. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
So that's really great. But I'm wondering, the 400 annuals? What do you do with that? That's a fair amount of open space. What do you do with that space between now and then? I mean, is it just wide open spaces?
No. So what will happen when I get the spring annuals, we put them in where the pansies are. So the
Oh, I
pansies
see.
go. So
'Cause they get all leggy
They're
and
getting
ugly.
leggy now. So
Yeah.
we cut those off at the ground and we just plant around them. And so we just sort of, it's like moving furniture. We just sort of, rearrange the gardens a little bit. But we always have space for.
What
For the
annuals are
annuals.
you planting? You got doing it in May. You have quite a choice.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do a lot of geraniums again, and little seed begonias. Wow, I don't remember
I was
my
wondering,
list. But
marigolds.
oh yes, lots of marigolds. People
they're
love
so bright.
marigolds.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The yellow marigolds are sort of our showpiece for the summer. Really catches people's eyes. Yeah, and you'll notice that there's yellow winter pansies out there now, and so they'll be substituted with the
Sure.
marigolds.
And the yellow marigolds or the orange marigolds, which I actually prefer the orange, with purple lobelia.
Yeah.
Bright.
Yeah, yeah.
That really stands out. And there's so much you can choose from. You could do a different combination every year for 50 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And never repeat yourself.
And we really thank Portland Parks they supply us with all those annuals. We don't have to buy those.
Oh, they have
Oh,
many.
really?
That's one of the
Well, they're-
one of the perks being part of that.
Sure.
Because they go around the city and they do the planters, and
Well,
so
they
we're
got enormous greenhouses where they're growing all this.
So yeah,
I
so
wonder,
we're
talking about 60th and Division, or is it still
That's the
operating? Well, maybe it is.
think-
a little bit. Not the greenhouses really are not producing. We buy
Oh,
those.
really?
We really
Oh.
buy those. I think Portland Parks buys those from suppliers out in the valley now.
well, it might be if they can get a good price, it might be a lot easier and cheaper
Yeah,
to do it that
yeah,
way.
I think that's the case. Yeah.
So other than volunteering at the actual memory garden to plant or to weed or whatever, is there any other things volunteers could do? Office work, or is that a minimum? And
Yeah, we don't really have a lot of office work. I would like to say that, we're a nonprofit, therefore we need to have a board. And so I have a wonderful board of 8 people.
It's a big board.
It's a big board, and we meet.
Volunteer board.
They're
probably.
volunteer
Yeah.
board. And we meet every other month, and we will do the business of decide on what the program's going to be. If we need to do a fundraiser, for example, on Friday, April 17th, coming up in a few weeks, we do an annual seminar called Gardens and Senior Living, where we provide scholars and practitioners to talk to people about the benefits of having gardens and senior living. So we invite administrators who are running senior communities, activity directors, people who have the authority to say, yes, I think a gardening program is important, or yes, I think we should hire a horticultural therapist. And so for one full day, we give them a pretty comprehensive look at why gardens are good things to do, from hardcore evidence-based research to actually what activities can you do. So that's coming up, and we do charge a fee for that. Our speakers are all volunteers, but that's the way that the garden can have a revenue stream, because we do have to buy some plants, and we do have to pay for tools and materials. So we do
And vandalism.
and vandalism, cleaning up after the vandals. Yeah.
Oh.
So
So have you made any connections to any of the local colleges through like the continuing education programs?
yes, a lot.
Oh.
Yes, and also high schools, because those students have a community service requirement. So
Oh, right.
we get some nice access to those programs.
So we're down to about 4 minutes. Goes quick,
Okay,
doesn't
yeah.
it? Anything else that you can think of that we might have missed? We've covered the pictures. We got the great video, and we encourage folks to
To visit,
To
just
vi-
to come. Yeah.
come and visit. And then is there anything great in bloom right now? Might be kind of in between here. The bulbs are gone pretty much. Well, you might have tulips.
The tulips are really beautiful.
That's right.
The tulips and the viburnums are beautiful.
Oh, Dave and I?
Yes,
Yeah.
yep, they're in full bloom. Actually, I was there on Saturday, and it was really looking beautiful. The fiddlehead ferns are coming up, so we have one area is all of our native. So we really just try to have what's native to Oregon, and so
right.
so that's another nice little garden where we can talk to people about native plants and why natives are important. And also, we really try to encourage beneficial insects and birds. So we're always adding plant material that will encourage that kind of traffic.
The biodiversity, because that is a problem with some gardens. Is we love certain plants, but the bugs and the things that like those particular plants, there may be just a very small cross section of what you need, and you need the whole thing. You have to put up with some insects that are in your way.
Yes.
Just in order to get the whole biodiversity of it.
Well, we are committed not to use pesticides because it's we want that garden to be very safe for everyone. So that's why we're encouraging other things to come in and maybe help us control those kind of issues. But one thing I do want to mention is 3 years ago, the piece of land next to the garden, which was supposed to be a part of the highway going to Mount Hood, we helped develop a community garden there with the Portland Parks Community Garden Program, and we now are kind of the stewards of that garden. Even though they're part of Portland Parks, we oversee it, and we funded the whole perimeter garden around that community garden with edibles. So there's apple trees and espalier, pear trees, and lots of caneberries and blueberries and strawberries, because part of our effort on that is when children and parents are walking by the garden, we want them to see how a strawberry looks when it grows or how a blueberry looks on a bush, and we really encourage everyone to, when those things are ripe, they can eat them and participate in harvesting those. So that we've added that to our plate to be part of this community garden that is very exciting for us.
And berries tend to come somewhat at different times.
Right.
So then you see the flowers, like right now the strawberries are flowering like crazy.
That's right, and the blueberries are doing their thing. So when elders come to the garden, we bring them, if they're able, we bring them over to the community garden so they can see how you garden in a raised bed, because we have some really lovely demonstration raised beds there to show, and even to show caregivers. You could build one of these in your community, and people could garden in them, standing up or in their wheelchairs. So we have that kind of education piece over there as well.
And you can support some of your local people who build, because you go to the Craigslist and there's a whole list of people building those.
Sure.
I bought one myself, and to do a little raised bed, and the situation with that is the ground stays warm longer in the autumn, and it warms up
more quickly in the spring.
Right. And the deep roots, and they pull the weeds really easy, and
and irrigation is a little bit more controlled. So there's a lot of great things about raised beds for everyone.
It's basically kind of semi-container gardening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, on a larger scale.
On a larger scale, sure. Well, we're down. We've used up our 58.5 minutes. We want to one more time encourage folks to go see this garden, 104th and just south of Powell. You can't miss that beautiful front gate. And I guess you turn right on 104th. First block on your left, right?
That's
and
correct.
Across the street there's another something or other, and just up the street there's a what do you call it? Those they run by with 1 foot there. The skateboard park.
Oh yeah,
A lot of
that's right.
cement
Absolutely.
everywhere.
That's right.
Skateboarders can bust up their knees and ankles.
That's
or
right.
whatever.
They used to do that in the memory garden, and then they went to the skate park.
I
So
bet you were happy
we were
with
happy
that.
we were very happy with the skate park.
Right. Like I was saying, go by and check this place out, and then I guess there's phone numbers they can call, but there's also emails where you can get a hold of these folks and can volunteer. And I don't know, do you need any directors right now? You got all your board of directors all set up?
We always could use more.
Most nonprofits do.
We could always use more ideas and fresh blood. Sure. Yeah.
Well, all right. We'll close for now, but we'll have Richard
Put up the
right. But you'll have to
replay
mention
times.
what the second half's going to be here. If he's here.
battle buddies with Ovi Muntean, dogs that they train to turn over to veterans.
That are back from.
Oh, nice.
Oh yes, veterans that are back from whatever. Mm-hmm. And absolutely.
So that's battlebuddies.org, I believe. It might be .com, but if folks want to check that out while as he was beginning to say, we were putting up the playback times here while we're changing over to the second segment. But Patty, gosh, I really appreciate you coming in
Thank you
here.
so
This
much.
is
I
great.
appreciate it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
You're going to get somebody out there that didn't know about it before this program.
I hope so.
And hopefully they're
sure of
going to
that.
spread the word, because that's
Spread
what
the
public
word,
access
yeah.
is all about. It's the public and public access.